February 19th, my birthday, started what they called in Europe the big week. And it wasn't to celebrate my birthday. It was to try to...
20 years old?
20. They were good. The major maximum effort, that means every plane that is flyable is going to go. Maximum effort missions every day. We figured that if we could destroy the opposition we're getting in the air, our losses were tremendous, by the way. When we got there, it was 23%. You put up 100 airplanes, 23. The missions were picked out, and we flew, the first one of that was Hamburg. We were part of the setting the fires in Hamburg. The second mission was in Hanover. That was a railroad yard, but it had a gasoline dump there, and it was one of the biggest fires I ever saw from 20,000 feet. Then our third mission during that week was Gotha. That was a Messerschmitt fighter plant and airstrip, one of the biggest fighter manufacturers of German fighters at that time. And we were leading our group that day, our bomb wing, and that was our target. We bombed it. We got an award for hitting the target. That's pretty good. And we dropped the bombs away. We making a slow left turn, hoping to get back on course to get back to England. And that's when the fighters moved in on us, and they destroyed number 2 engine. So now we got 3 engines going. So our pilot puts down the landing gear. That's a signal to everybody, do not follow, we're emergency. And we fall out of formation. Now a second engine is starting to smoke. So we know we're not going to make England now. We get to a point where there's no place to crash land. Our navigator, who flies, squadron navigator, lead crew, we have a squadron navigator, flies in the nose turret. He was killed with a direct hit, a 20 millimeter cannon. And the second hit took out the windshield on the right side, which is co-pilot. Just by the visual wounds, you know that he was gone. And when a B-24 gets wounded in one of those gas tanks, they just explode. And all I'm thinking about, will I make it to the back of the airplane or not, to tell these guys to get out? Anyway, the hydraulic system went bananas from all the fires on the airplane and that, and the doors slipped shut, and that's where we bail out. Bombay door was damaged, and it was ripped part away from these rollers that it comes down on. It was kind of shredded away, ripped, and flapping in the breeze. But we had to get out. We figured that's the only way. And I told the navigator, I said, they tell you not to walk on those when everything's all right, because 100 pounds of pressure will break them loose. So I said, if I jump on that, I'll take it with me, and then the other guys will be able to go through there. You couldn't pull your chute in it because you'd rip it to pieces, the jagged metal. So I just jumped out there on that sheet metal, and it kind of did nothing. And then all of a sudden it gave away, and I went out, with the sheet metal, and and the rest of the people all got out okay. The pilot said he followed the plane was on automatic pilot. He said he followed it, he's just about ready to disappear when the thing blew up. So if we'd have stayed with it, we wouldn't have made it to even the coastline or anything. Anyway.
So you were captured then?
We were captured by what they call the Volkssturm. So they took us to Frankfurt to an interrogation center, and they were professionals there, and those beautiful uniforms. The Germans had the prettiest uniforms of anybody. And at this interrogation center, they would ask you questions, and they would threaten you with their broken English, and then they'd always end the interview with perfect English. One guy went to school in Chicago. One guy went to school in California. And really, these are their professional soldiers. Anyway, he asks you all these questions, and it nearly always wind up with that threat that if you don't answer, we have a right to execute you. You're in a uniform, blah, 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 blah. We have a right to shoot you. Our first prison camp was in East Prussia on the Baltic Ocean. We asked him why it took us forever in this boxcar, no bathroom, no water. We got a chunk of bread like that thick every other day. Anybody that was a prisoner in Germany that was moved at all lost at least a third of their weight. I weighed, as my story goes on, you'll have to shave again before it takes so long. But when I got to Oxford, England, to a hospital, I weighed 98 pounds.
Wow. What did you weigh when you went?
170.
So you were in a prisoner of war camp in East Prussia. You were in other prisoner of war camps, though, too.
We were only there about 5 months.
Okay, where'd you go then?
We could hear gunfire at night. It was the Russians
were
coming.
coming.
So they marched us to the coast of the Baltic Ocean. They chained us together with a foot of chain, handcuffed us 2 and 2. They put us on a boxcar, and they took us about 5 miles short of this prison camp in northern Poland. That was Stalag Luft 4, and the name of the town was Grodzichow. Never heard of it. Got us out of this railroad car. We're chained together, and they got us all lined up, and there's 800 or 900 of us, and they started us running. The head of the line, the guards were Krieg Marines. We found out they were all from 12 to 14 years old. They wore, their uniform was like a sailor suit like we have at Great Lakes, the big collar and all. Mm-hmm. But these kids were trained to be like killers. We had guys with puncture wounds of bayonets, only about that deep, and just to get guys running. They turned the dogs loose, and so many of them died because of infection. We had no medical care, and dog bites were so prevalent.
So then you were in a prisoner of war camp in northern Poland?
5 to 6 months.
Okay. Did you go to another camp then?
January.
This is 45 now?
1945. The coldest winter on record. Every place I went, I set records over there. They walked us out of the gate, and they told us, you're not coming back inside. We started to walk. We walked for 91 days across northern Poland into Germany. Some days we'd get 1 boiled potato a day. We slept in snowbanks. We slept in barns with infested hay. You can't believe this on this march. 91 days.
So this almost takes you to the end of the war then, right?
It did. We wound up at Stalag Luft 357, and that would be in the first part of April.
And where is that? Where is that in Germany?
If you looked at a map, you see the Elbe River. It'd be like 80 miles on the west side of the Elbe.
That's the right side of the Elbe to be on then, wasn't it?
You bet. We got over there, and we got to this last camp, and I don't know how many guys. We buried some guys in snowbanks. We couldn't dig in the ground. The ground was frozen on this march. They die. You stick them in a snowbank. And we tried to, the guards said they were marking the locations, but they could care less. And at night, the sky would be lit up with mortar fire.
So how were you finally liberated? I mean, what happened?
And we ran into the English lines. And it was an English tank corps called a British 8th Hussars.
What an incredible story. How, you know, how would you sum up your experience? I mean, how do you look, when you look back on your experience in World War II and everything?
I think every kid coming out of high school should do a year in the military. That's the first thing. I learned so much about people and life. Moxie, what do you lawyers call that stuff?
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, you had an incredible experience. You have an incredible memory.
Oh.
And we'd like to thank you for sharing it all with us.
Mike, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, all you wonderful people.